Do you absolutely adore colouring but hate that when you use your alcohol markers this happens? Even on expensive paper that is supposed to work for markers, there is always a bleed through. Well, apparently Ohuhu have fixed that with this. I have seen this all over the internet, this marker pad that doesn't allow any bleed through of your alcohol markers. Now, me being an absolute alcohol marker fiend, it being my colouring medium of choice, I just had to give it a try. So let's test this out together and see if it's worth the hype. I did have some aesthetically pleasing footage of me opening up the marker pad, but for some reason that has disappeared, so we're just jumping straight into blending, why not? So I've pulled out 3 Ohuhu markers in a sort of red-violet tone, sort of nice hot pink, and I am swatching them out and blending, and then just taking a little note of the pens that I've used. As I have multiple alcohol markers, I decided to do the same with my Copic markers as well and swatch them out. Now, this was quite interesting because when I did this, you can see that it doesn't blend as easily. There's quite a harsh line between blend, and I don't normally find that with my Copic markers. So just to kind of put that to the test, I swatched both the colours out again on the usual paper that I would use, which is just a super smooth paper, and you can see how much better the Copic marker blends on the normal paper that I use. It's getting a bit of a funny blend on this particular paper, so I'm not sure if that's going to be an issue or why, but let's put it to the test again. This time, rather than just a simple swatch, I thought we would colour out an image. I also, just for the record, have put the other swatch that I coloured in there as well, and I've made notes on different things. I think it's really good to refer back to in future when I make art in this pad. It's nice to have a reference as to what worked and what didn't. So I coloured this with the Ohuhu markers, absolutely beautiful, blend really smooth. You can see the struggle is real when it comes to these Copic markers. I am really struggling to blend these. I'm really not sure why I was having such an issue. I get something that is okayish, but it's not to my usual standard, so really not happy with how that went. Now, I did actually colour those colours with another paper, and I'm still having a little bit of an issue, so whether that's my markers or the paper, I don't know. Lots more testing required. But look at that! I have just flipped the page and there is absolutely no marks. So this alcohol marker sketchbook definitely does what it says on the tin. You can colour and there is no bleed through on the other side. I'm not sure what sort of magic that is that makes that occur, but yeah, you can see it, absolutely nothing on the other side. Now I am going to push this paper to the max. I am going to throw everything at it to ensure that this works. So we're going to try galaxy effect. So I've scribbled lots and lots of ink on there, and now I've got isopropyl and I am dabbing it on there as well. Now, as well as doing this particular technique this way, I'm also going to do it by pouring the alcohol ink refillers onto the page, so there's lots of ink there. It's not just a pass from a pen, it's pooling there, as you can see. And I am putting lots of isopropyl. I cannot tell you how much isopropyl I put on this. I've cut the footage down quite a bit because it literally went on for ages and ages, but all I can say is I threw a lot at this particular page. Now, you can't, as to the eye sees, there is no bleed through. That is really impressive. Now, there's tiny little dots, but honestly, I think considering the amount of abuse I put that paper in, I think even if I was creating a galaxy effect, I wouldn't go as overboard as I did on that test. So the test has come through really well. So now I just want to try general colouring, see how we get on. I have got these gorgeous stamps by Stampanori that I bought at the workshop and as yet have not played with. So I stamped a few of those out to build a little scene and to colour it in and see how we get on when we start to colour an actual image. So I'm going to use a mix of Ohuhu and Copics with this, mostly because when it comes to my Ohuhus, the box that I've got, I don't have the best colours for skin tones and things, so I'm going to mix both the markers and it'll be a good chance to see how they both react to the paper. So
Here is when I discover a problem for us crafters. I have used Memento ink, which is the best. I'm trying to show you here, but it's not really showing up. But the ink is moving. So whatever magic they have done, whatever they have done to the paper to allow it not to bleed through, it reacts funny with your Memento inks. So at this point of me doing this testing, I was really disappointed, because I thought for those of us that enjoy stamping and crafting like that, we're not just artist drawing, that we want to kind of use our stamps, it kind of limits us somewhat. Now I did manage to finish this colouring and make it look really good, but it was a little bit of a struggle when I was using paler colours, and a little bit frustrating that it wasn't really working for me. So at this point, as I'm experimenting, I'm thinking that for what the pad costs, so it is actually on special offer, so I will link it in the description box below. It's on special offer right now, but under the normal price it's about just over £17, £17 plus that, so it works out at 34p a page. So I think for keeping a nice record of what you are doing, it is really good. I think if you are an artist, it comes into its own if you want to do a nice aesthetic flip through. So what I decided to do next was to actually treat this sketch pad as I would as an artist. So I'm actually just sketching with my alcohol markers. I have reverted back to Copics here. I have used Copics longer than I've used Ohuhu markers, and I'm just a bit more confident with them when it comes to colour combos and how to use them and things like that. So that's the only reason I've switched out to Copics. I also have been watching some artists here on YouTube, and they just draw directly. They don't bother with any sketch lines, they just draw directly with a really pale alcohol marker and then build it up. So I tried that particular technique. I've used one of the old sketches that I've got in one of my old sketchbook and just redrew that out and decided to colour. Now I have to say, as I was doing this page really made me fall in love with this book. I have to say, up until this point I was a bit like, yeah, it's great for the novelty of it not bleeding through. As a crafter, more often than not, I colour and I put what I've coloured onto a card, onto a journal page, so you're not seeing the back anyway because you tend to glue it down. As someone who took alcohol marker classes, I think it would be really nice to have a record. As someone who is also an artist as well as a crafter, I really enjoyed looking at this. Just this bit here, look how wet this stays on the page. I'll be able to illustrate it a bit later in the footage as well, but it stays really wet on the page for a long time, and the fact that it stays like that, stays really wet and doesn't absorb in, just really gives you so much more freedom when it comes to blending. Now these are also with my Copic markers, and I was struggling with Copic markers in the swatching stage. It really wasn't working, and yet on this page I wasn't having any difficulty at all. Like, you look at it, you can just see that dark tone. That's because it's still to evaporate. And so the blendability and the potential of really elevating your work and growing your skills as an alcohol marker artist or as an alcohol marker colourist is huge. And so at this point I was like, yeah, do you know what, I would actually spend 34p a page on this for my record. For my journey of what I do with my alcohol markers. So I think if you're someone who is interested in keeping a sketchbook or interested in curating your journey as a colourist, that this is amazing. So at this point I felt really disappointed for everything that I just thought and said about the previous page, about it not working very well with stampable ink. With the Memento we were definitely getting a grey shadow, and so I am going to find a workaround that in the following page. So if you're a crafter, and don't be put off, keep watching, because there is a way that I managed to make it work. So with this page I am just adding the details. Have to say, this isn't the most rendered piece of artwork that I've ever done. I am working to a time frame of getting this video out, and I had lots of experimentation that I want to do, but I am looking forward to, you know, spending hours and hours on something and really working at it beautifully. I think this works well. I'm quite happy with the standard of colouring that I left it at, but it could have been rendered more. Now here's what I'm trying to say about the ink. Because I'm using a really pale blue right now, there's not a huge amount of ink, so it's mostly alcohol. So you can see how wet that page is. I've used the exact same colour at the top, and as you can see it's just fading into a lovely pale blue. But as you are colouring with it, it looks grey and horrible, so it's good not to panic at this stage. There is a tendency to just panic a little bit. Just let it evaporate, let the alcohol evaporate, and then go back and fix as required. But that there shows how wet that it stays, the fact that you have that sort of impact, and the fact it looks like that for quite some time. I decided to go in with my black pen just to sort of fine line it, give it a bit of line work to make it pop, and then also added some juicy highlights with a white pen, and I am loving that. So in the craft world we have what we term as no lines colouring. So you can see there both those pages, I've been able to have consistent pages both sides and no bleed through. So we're going to try some no lines colouring. So instead of stamping with Memento Black, I am stamping with Memento Grey. I've decided to do it in two different colours just to see which worked out the best, and one with a Memento Sand. So basically the lines are still down there, but they are really nice and pale, and hopefully that should make a difference. Now I have to say, as I was colouring this page, I had no issues at all when it came to the ink bleeding. So hurrah for us crafters. Now the thing is, when Ohuhu made this marker pad, they would have been making it with their pens in mind. I'm using Copics here. Well, actually on this page I use a mixture of a Copics and Ohuhu markers, but I've used my Copics on it. I have also bought a whole load of other alcohol markers which will be coming to my channel very soon, and I will test them in this pad as well, so do stay tuned for that. So we're mixing our markers and it's taking it fine, and actually we've been able to find a workaround. I'm sure when Ohuhu were developing this paper they maybe didn't have the craft industry in mind. If by some random chance you happen to pop onto my channel and see it, us crafters like your products too. We need it to work for us, but anyway, we've made it work for us. So using the ink that you would normally use for your stamps but in a paler tone, and using the no lines colouring technique, really it did make a difference. So I'm using the same technique that I have in all the colouring that we've done so far. I've coloured up the images, and then I have just put a little bit of a blue shading around all of those. So when it comes to your no lines colouring, you can leave it as is. Look at that. Actually, for the first time ever, I've used the chisel nib on my markers. I never use the chisel nib on my markers, but it was such a big area to cover. Now I have to say again, I did not render this page as well as I could have. I have done background colouring with Copic markers in the past and done a much better job, but you do need to do 2 or 3 passes of it, and I just really wasn't feeling that today. And sky can be a bit patchy anyway, and I'm going to fix it in a minute. So I did kind of want a little bit of detail work. I just sort of traced over some of the edges with a black line. You don't need to. I also didn't do all the lines, I just did little features here and there. Same with the white. And then here is my workaround. The sky was a bit patchy, which was irritating me a little bit, but all I've done is come in with a white acrylic marker and sort of painted in some clouds and splodged it, and then the splodges work fine. So would I recommend this pad? I think if you're a crafter and you're just colouring your images to put on a project, then no. I think if you are wanting to record your journey, or as an alcohol artist want a nice aesthetic flip through, it's absolutely worth the money as a special treat to yourself. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Please stay tuned for more.